Before I move into my budget speech proper, Mr. Speaker, I feel I should comment on a matter that, fueled by an implication made by members opposite in this House last week, has been the subject of speculation by some in what we now commonly know as the social media. Mr. Speaker, in supplementaries to question 44814, my past connection with the firm that runs the Botanic Gardens, a connection known to the whole of Gibraltar and successive governments for over 20 years, was presented in a way that may have implied some impropriety on the part of government in awarding the contract for Commonwealth Park. I think, Mr. Speaker, that this point was answered when it was confirmed by me that I am no longer directly involved in the company and that my shares are not held in trust for me. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, in the company search that they carried out, and which they said they had, members opposite will have seen that my wife was still a shareholder. This is no secret, and in fact members opposite will have known this anyway, for I worked very closely with successive GSD ministers as director of the gardens. There is therefore no issue in that I ever wanted this not to be known, as I knew it was known. Correctly, I believe the opposition made no issue of that, and you, Mr. Speaker, moved the oral question session on. Mr. Speaker, some contributors to the social media, who it appears also had that information, which is fine, as it is public, sought to imply that this meant that my wife, and perhaps indirectly I, had a monetary interest in the company, and therefore in the Alameda and Commonwealth Park. I made it clear in a brief statement on social media that neither my wife nor I had ever collected fees from the company, and that this would continue to be the case with Commonwealth Park. The company was merely a vehicle by which to perform the work I carried out, and my wife's continuing as a shareholder is just a sentimental link to 20 years of my life, but, I repeat, with no financial benefit. The matter that remains then, Mr. Speaker, is whether the situation as described in any way unfairly benefited the company in its bid for the Commonwealth Park contract. Mr. Speaker, the process was not run by me, but independently by the government's procurement office. It was the board that considered the 3 applications and that ruled that 2 of these did not comply with the requirements. I was not involved in any way at that stage. In fact, I am only aware of the identity of one of the other 2 tenderers because they approached me since last Wednesday to assure me that they bear no grudge and do not assign any unfairness to the process leading to the outcome. Mr. Speaker, what we cannot have is that a group of good professionals with huge experience and many qualifications are excluded from being considered for carrying out functions which will benefit Gibraltar because I happen to have had connections with them. By implication, for example, Hassan's would be excluded from all government work because members from both sides of the House still have connections with the firm. I wish to assure this House, Mr. Speaker, that there has been no preferential treatment given and that the process for selection of the firm to manage Commonwealth Park has been dealt with in a fair and professional manner by all concerned. Mr. Speaker, I should point out that a few years ago, during the time of the previous administration, Wildlife was directly given a contract for the Upper Rock, assumed responsibility for running the scientific authority and bird control, and was repeatedly offered management of the cemetery, which it declined. This was presumably done because the government of the time thought that they would do it well. Indeed, the Minister for the Environment at the time, the Honourable Ernest Brito, wrote to me on the day marking 20 years of the Botanic Garden project in May 2011, stating, and I quote, "I want to extend my warmest congratulations to you personally and also to the staff at Wildlife Gibraltar Limited on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the running of the Alameda Gardens. It is without doubt that the gardens have seen great improvement during this time, especially the creation of the Gibraltar Botanic Gardens and the general beautification of the gardens, which is in itself a very important attraction to many visiting tourists, making a significant contribution to Gibraltar's tourist product." End of quote. The only thing that has changed since then is my departure. I can accept, Mr. Speaker, that in politics the slightest thing will be picked on, but I can assure this House, Mr. Speaker, that there has been nothing in this process that can cause this House any concern. And so to the main body of my speech, which will be divided into 2 parts. Mr. Speaker, I believe I begin with the environment. This past year has been the consolidation of environmental thinking, government policy and action, cascading and percolating well into the private sector. On looking back and taking stock, Mr. Speaker, I am at the same time embarrassed at the huge environmental deficit Gibraltar held to the rest of the world in 2011, as I am proud of the way that it has advanced since. I am delighted, therefore, to report, Mr. Speaker, that this year has been yet another testimony to the unparalleled level of commitment and work in all areas of national and international environmental management, which began when I took office as Minister for the Environment two and a half short years ago. Tempus fugit, Mr. Speaker, or to quote Virgil to the full, fugit irreparabilis tempus, which makes it even more important for us to dedicate ourselves fully to the task of bringing Gibraltar up to international standards in environmental governance and make up for all the lost time of the past. Mr. Speaker, Gibraltar has now firmly established itself as a leader in environmental governance within the UK overseas territories, a role it has long deserved and that I worked for before entering politics, but that was blocked by the isolationist policies of the former administration. The success of the government's outreach was highlighted last year in a much acclaimed report on environmental governance in the overseas territories produced by the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, by far the largest UK environmental NGO, and published last year, where Gibraltar ranked first in all aspects. Not only are we leaving our mark with the territories, but within Europe as well, as government officials increasingly network and demonstrate our vision and working practices. Only last month, environment officials attended a seminar in Greece where Gibraltar showcased its marine management and contribute towards enhancing the management of Mediterranean protected areas at a European level. From a position where Gibraltar was simply not represented in these events at all, we have moved to helping mould European environmental policy. The benefits to Gibraltar from these networks are tremendous as we collaborate on exciting projects and the wider international community. We get increasingly known, recognized and accepted. Gibraltar is now working at different levels with most EU countries, either directly or as part of group forums on a wide variety of issues, including the Habitats Directive, air quality, climate change, waste and habitat management. Scientists and officials in the department regularly attend courses on a whole array of issues, ranging from oil spill response to environmental law. As a scientist myself, I am all too aware of the need for continuing professional development in this field and the benefits of providing public servants with these opportunities. Mr. Speaker, environmental civil servants and advisors continue to be involved in discussion and decision-making at all levels of government. They not only work for me, but for all other ministers in the government and are called upon by my colleagues for input and advice on a regular basis. The department continues to work closely with law drafters at EUID to review existing environmental legislation and deliver improvements where possible, always with the view of providing for sounder and greater environmental management and protection, which are in the interests of all. As I've said, Mr. Speaker, environment is now more proactive than ever before, and its staff better prepared through resources and training to deal with a whole array of environmental issues. By way of example, the department now has its own diving section and is performing marine surveys and relocations in-house. Officers are also on call to allow for faster deployment when dealing with a wider range of environmental problems, including oil spills and pollution incidents. This complements the excellent work already being done by the Environmental Agency. We have also enhanced the number of staff in the environmental feedback section to allow for an improved service to the public, and will shortly be releasing a new app called Fix My Street, an online reporting facility which provides direct contact with government departments and agencies for the reporting and resolution of municipal service requests. Citizens will be able to submit service requests relating to a variety of issues, including abandoned vehicles, pollution, domestic refuse, graffiti, potholes, sign damage, stormwater drains, street cleaning, street lights, etc. In order to ensure that environmental governance is public service-wide, a seminar with all government departments to ensure the successful adoption of the newly revised Environmental Action and Management Plan is planned for September-October. This document exemplifies this government's commitment to environmental change in Gibraltar, and the department is tasked with ensuring its successful implementation throughout the public service. The green filter continued to drive through government activity. One of the biggest success stories in this respect, Mr. Speaker, continues to be the government's green procurement policy. By applying and directing the public sector's purchasing power within the local market towards green alternatives, we are now finding that these are not only more widespread and easily accessible to the consumer, but that increasingly they are available at a lower price than the non-environmental alternatives. And more local businesses are moving into the environmental sector with the products and services they offer. This just goes to show what can be achieved when government leads by example, and is one of several clearly emerging successes that resulted from the inspirational Thinking Green conference addressed by Vice President Al Gore in October 2012. Representatives of the Environment Department are present in any cross-departmental committee which may be set up, as well as in the government's Projects Committee. The department leads in committees such as the Environmental Noise Steering Group, the Energy Efficiency Committee, the Litter Committee, and the Climate Change Forum, all of which I chair. We have recently created a climate change task force, chaired by the Deputy Chief Minister, which meets on a monthly basis and significantly includes key stakeholders from the private sector and the Financial Services Commission. The aim, Mr. Speaker, is to deliver tangible changes within Gibraltar on energy efficiency, climate change and decarbonisation. In essence, to deliver Gibraltar's 2020 climate strategy and overarching climate goals. Environment has also been key in the creation of a coordination committee across technical departments in order to increase cooperation and efficiency in delivering government projects. Mr. Speaker, the extremely successful recycling initiative continues, and further bins have been purchased and will be deployed in coming months. The numbers of blue, green and yellow bins will be increased in the town area, as well as in MOD estates and other locations in Gibraltar. Further expansion to the recycling initiative include more pink bins, which cater for the recycling of waste, electrical and electronic equipment, and for the first time, the deployment of orange bins to cater for the recycling of waste cooking oil. The recycling of paper, small items of waste, electrical and electronic equipment, and batteries from all government agencies, authorities and departments, which commenced last year, continues, with 52,061 kilos collected from the private sector alone, from the public sector alone, I beg your pardon, in the financial year 2013-14. Promoting awareness is vital for the successful implementation of any environmental initiative. With this in mind, the recycling campaign has been enhanced to capture the recycling of further waste streams, namely paper and waste electrical equipment. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the yellow bins used for cans, plastic and Tetra Brick collected a total of 70,720 kilos, a 383.7% increase from the previous year. The green bins, where we deposit glass, collected a total of 153,248 kilos in 2013, a percentage increase of 21%. The blue bins, used for paper and cardboard, collected 132,495 kilos with a massive percentage increase of 3,617%. The Pink Bin program commenced in 2013 and collected a total of 1,113 kilos with only 6 bins so far around Gibraltar. Mr. Speaker, these figures do not illustrate a success story. I simply do not know what will. A success story which would not have happened without the political will and foresight of this administration and without the support of the general public, who deserve to be praised for assisting Gibraltar as it moves towards achieving the EU recycling targets. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, all you could recycle in Gibraltar was tins and glass. The refurbishment of all refuse holding facilities has continued, with 6 refuse cubicles being completed this year and 15 in the pipeline. The Gibraltar Waste Management Plan was updated this last year to reflect the government's policy on waste management and was submitted to the EU. The waste tender is going through its technical assessment. In respect of waste, Gibraltar is set to receive technology that will transform the way we deal with our rubbish. The Litter Committee continues to meet on a regular basis, and the improvements as a result of the work of this committee are evident throughout Gibraltar, with the enclosure of the refuse quarry being but one example. With the Litter Committee, we are studying ways in which to make our streets cleaner, especially those areas where historically there have been accumulations of rubbish, especially at weekends. Mr. Speaker, there is still more to be done, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of the committee, especially those from outside the public sector who give of their time, for all their hard work and dedication. It really is a pleasure working with them, even though we spend most of our time talking rubbish. Other waste and litter-related initiatives include the addition of signs to litter bins on dog fouling, the incorporation of ashtrays to litter bins, and an extensive CCTV program in hotspots, areas of dog fouling and waste dumping. Work with NGOs continues, and regular meetings take place with both government officials and with me. We have now expanded the process of involvement and transparency, and not only meet with the established environmental NGOs, but also with other groups and individuals who work and contribute towards improving Gibraltar visually through cleanliness and who focus on waste and litter. Mr. Speaker, government remains committed to involving the wider Gibraltar in its work. My ministry now engages with more local groups than ever before and liaises with the public on a whole array of issues, directly and indirectly related to the environment. My doors are never closed to any such group. Regular meetings continue to be held with the Scientific Authority and the Nature Conservancy Council, who are working closely with the Ministry and Department on a variety of issues relating to nature conservation and habitat management. I mentioned last year the work of the Department with the GFSB and Chamber of Commerce on varying issues of environmental concern. As a result of this, a green seminar was held by the Department on sustainable construction. It was extremely well attended, and more seminars are being planned in order to tackle other issues such as sustainable tourism. Mr. Speaker, we have made history this year. Not only has the government signed a power purchase agreement for wave power, which has already seen Gibraltar thrust firmly into the renewable energy scene, but I am delighted to announce that last month, for the first time in the history of energy generation in Gibraltar, 90 kilowatt hours of solar energy were fed into the local network. Additionally, data on energy savings are being collated as a result of the solar panels on the GSLA swimming pool and the Tercentenary Sports Hall. To put matters into perspective, based on the data on savings thus far, the projected annual savings to government from the swimming pool alone is £103,789. Further projects on solar power are currently underway at St. Bernard's Hospital and Tangier Views. Work is continuing in the department to identify further sites for the development and deployment of renewable technology, and we are in discussion with several providers. We look forward during the course of this year to announce further solar power projects. We will also be continuing our work to assess the viability of marine current energy as a supplier of electricity. This is, Mr. Speaker, clear evidence of our commitment to delivering a sustainable Gibraltar. May I remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that before this government came into administration, there had been absolutely no progress made, nor any interest shown in such matters, with Gibraltar trailing badly behind the rest of Europe. The actions and initiatives being delivered by this administration have enabled a wide range of possibilities to become available in Gibraltar, with environment working horizontally across the full breadth of the public service to deliver economic prosperity with environmental protection and social justice. This past year has seen a concerted effort in raising awareness of a whole array of environmental issues through the media. Some of you may have watched some of the episodes, Mr. Speaker, showing on GBC on the work carried out by the department in respect of World Environment Day. More programs will follow, focusing on other aspects of the environment. But this is not all. We have moved into the 21st century and have taken the raising of awareness to a new dimension, using technology and current trends to facilitate active learner involvement in the local environment. What is hugely significant about this strategy is that through the use of Android and iOS, we're also spreading awareness to the world at large. We have seen the launch of the Gibraltar Wildlife Jigsaw. Today, as I speak, we are launching a recycling game, and soon we will see a macaque augmented reality application, the Upper Rock multifunctional app, and the Gibraltar Interactive Wildlife Encyclopedia. The Thinking Green website now has a kids zone, which will be developed further and expanded upon in coming months. All of these portray local environmental resources which children not only from Gibraltar but now from all over the world can download and learn about as they play. Mr. Speaker, this year government celebrated the 10th anniversary of World Environment Day. The purpose of this United Nations Environment Programme Day is to spread awareness of center-stage environmental issues. This year's theme is particularly well suited to Gibraltar, being climate change in small island states, with the slogan, "Raise your voices, not the sea." And I must say the children did exactly that. The message showed through louder and better than ever before. As Minister for the Environment and someone who I think has always tried to keep in touch with the youth, it is the most inspiring part of my work, to see that the message really does get across and that we are succeeding in ensuring that tomorrow's generation, tomorrow's political leaders, public servants and business entrepreneurs are growing up with this environmental awareness. Which means, Mr. Speaker, that finding solutions and assuming their environmental duty of care will form a natural part of their lives. The work done by children, teachers and parents has to be praised. I must also praise my department, whose unwavering efforts with schools and other youth groups in recent years has really brought the message home. Mr. Speaker, this year finally saw the launch of the government's Geoportal, an interactive map of Gibraltar produced by the Technical Services Department together with the IT Department and Environment. The GIS database consists of a series of layers that can be overlaid to provide information on spatial patterns. The IT Department has been monitoring usage, and since the 19th of March, the map has been viewed and utilized from right across the globe, as far east as China, as far south as Mozambique and New Zealand, the extreme north including Finland and Canada, and to the west reaching Los Angeles in California. It has been used on mobile devices and a whole array of operating systems and web browsers. The average usage, Mr. Speaker, is 14,825 server requests per day. So not only are we providing an interactive map with valuable information online, ranging from streets and buildings to natural areas and geology, it is clear that people all over the world are interested in what Gibraltar is all about. This service will continue to be updated and further information is being added regularly. Mr. Speaker, the GIS project had been stumbling without political leadership or indeed interest for years, and since this administration took over, it has progressed unrecognizably. Another exciting development last year, Mr. Speaker, was the UK Overseas Territories GIS Conference. It was a resounding success, and Gibraltar once again led by example and is taking a very active role in the development and deployment of GIS across the territories. Moving on to energy and climate change, Mr. Speaker, I ask that you forgive me if I appear overly enthusiastic, but again, progress, determination and success are very much the name of the game. The government continues with a program to replace public lighting and street lights with solar-powered devices and or LEDs. Data on energy and, as a result, cost savings are being collated by the Gibraltar Electricity Authority and are very encouraging. Going green certainly pays off. Furthermore, as part of our efforts to mitigate and contribute towards the global fight against climate change, the Department is working hard to ensure that we fulfill our obligations under the various energy-related EU directives. To this end, we are working closely with Aquagib and the GEA to start the rollout of smart meters. These will allow people to use their energy, to see their energy usage differently and make changes to save on consumption and money. Bills will also take on a new format, allowing householders to compare usage in 1 month from previous years. Energy efficiency and reduction, decarbonization of the economy, energy audit, and the launch of renewables are the order of the day. We are spearheading Gibraltar into the international arena as we seek to form part of initiatives such as the Covenant of Mayors, Green Cities, and the Local Governments for Sustainability Initiative. Mr. Speaker, since I spoke last year, the evidence for the global and local risks of climate change has deepened and strengthened. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 5th Assessment Report was released in September. Its conclusions were starker and more certain than in any previous report. In its summary for policymakers, it states, Warming of the climate system is unequivocal. The atmosphere and ocean have warmed. The amounts of snow and ice have diminished. Sea level has risen, and the concentrations of greenhouse gases have increased. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford to ignore this issue, which is storing huge risks and threats for established order on our planet, for our children and grandchildren. Along with the rest of the global community, we need to decarbonize our economy. Failure to do so will leave future generations to pick up the costs and the insecurity which climate change will bring. We must play our part in both mitigation and adaptation. It is for these reasons, Mr. Speaker, that last year I reported our ambition for Gibraltar's climate change strategy to make us a top 5 city in environmental governance. I am pleased to report that huge progress has been made on many fronts, moving our manifesto commitment to make Gibraltar carbon neutral from ambition into action. In October of last year, an internal review of our climate change strategy and commitments endorsed a recommendation to deliver carbon neutrality by 2020 at the latest, ahead of any other city in Europe. To reiterate a few of the actions we have already taken to reduce carbon emissions, our plans are well advanced to build a new gas-powered power station, which will simultaneously deliver energy security and much lower emissions, as well as improving air quality, our renewable energy projects, a range of energy efficiency measures, and the invaluable and groundbreaking work of the Climate Change Task Force. The Climate Change Forum, which continues to meet, will this year deliver a revised climate change program as a result of the work being carried out by the task force. The work and remit of the task force include assessing and finding the most effective ways of implementing Gibraltar climate change strategy for 2020 and beyond. By incorporating private and public sector stakeholders, the task force is well placed to find ways of implementing the findings of the research being conducted, in providing an economic assessment of the decarbonisation options for Gibraltar, a renewable energy strategy, supporting the delivery of an energy efficiency action plan and building renovation strategy, a city-level inventory of greenhouse gas emissions, and a climate change strategy for the transport sector. The focus of this administration, Mr. Speaker, is to work hand in hand with the community and all facets of the private sector to deliver this very inspiring change and ensuring Gibraltar truly becomes a top green city. One of the major conclusions from our strategy review is that climate change is as much an economic issue as an environmental one. Avoiding compliance costs is another powerful argument for actively reducing our emissions. A second conclusion is that we can make progressive climate change actions a long-term economic opportunity rather than a cost. The example of the GSLA swimming pool is a classic example, even if small for now, which in addition to the £103,789 of cost savings I've already highlighted, is eliminating nearly 18,000 tonnes of carbon emissions from our atmosphere every year. To give most figures, Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that there are more areas of public lighting, the change of some areas to lower energy systems has meant that for the first time, energy consumption in street lighting fell from 1.81 million kilowatt hours in 2012-13 to 1.74, resulting in a small but significant saving of several thousand pounds. This is just the beginning. Other changes in light fittings in public buildings and public areas are resulting in energy savings of up to 90%. We have also concluded that in the lifespan of this Parliament, we will introduce a range of incentives for all parts of our community to adopt lower carbon lifestyles and business practices. The Chief Minister, in his address, has announced some of these incentives. It is obvious, Mr. Speaker, that making massive reductions to our carbon emissions will take many years. And even when we have made all the viable technical, social and economic investments to reduce emissions, there will still be residual emissions which we cannot eliminate. For example, in transport fuels. We are reviewing how these emissions can be offset and are looking toward working with other countries to this effect. The most important point to make here, Mr. Speaker, is our collective drive and determination to ensure success. And I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all members of the task force for the work and dedication to delivering this vision for Gibraltar. In terms of energy performance of buildings, the government is currently completing a building renovation strategy which will set new cost-optimal levels of energy performance for new buildings and existing buildings, as well as defining nearly zero energy building standards as we move towards 2020. On water quality, Mr. Speaker, both coastal water quality and bathing water monitoring programs continue to be in operation, and these are spearheaded by the Department of the Environment and the Environmental Agency respectively. New initiatives that have been incorporated into the former program include carrying out a comprehensive chemical monitoring investigation of marine biota in British Gibraltar territorial waters, targeting both fish and bivalve mollusk species. This initiative will serve as an excellent medium to long-term indicator of pollutant levels in Gibraltar's marine environment. It is now possible to say that the Department of the Environment is monitoring most, if not all, marine environmental components. In addition, the Department has also commenced the development of a marine litter campaign, which includes monitoring the incidence and composition of marine litter. Groundwater quality monitoring also continues to be carried out by the Department in the Northern Isthmus aquifer and also within the bedrock aquifer underlying the Rock of Gibraltar. The results generated from the coastal groundwater programs will shortly be used to inform Gibraltar's second River Basin Management Plan, in line with the requirements of the European Union's Water Framework Directive. Results will also be used to inform reporting requirements under other directives, such as the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. In order to improve coastal water quality within the harbour, the Department of the Environment, together with the Technical Services Department, is currently pursuing the development of one-way flow culverts, which could help improve coastal water quality in specific areas within the harbour. New EU-compliant beach signs have now been developed by the Department of the Environment together with the Environment Agency and the Gibraltar Tourist Board, and these will be installed this year. The signs will provide the public with easily accessible information on the characteristic of each beach in Gibraltar, along with further information on the results of the water monitoring programme. I must also pay tribute to the hard work of the staff of the Environmental Agency, who have also been working tirelessly to deliver change and environmental improvements within their areas of competence. Examples of their efforts include the following: introduction of the Environmental Agency app, Gib Enviro, catering for news, location of recycling points, etc., a presence on Twitter and Facebook, the upgrading of their website, the introduction of a ship sanitation certificate service as from July, increased monitoring and enforcement on waste storage and disposal sites, increased inspections of trans-frontier shipments of waste, the provision of specialized waste management training, an expansion of the portfolios of courses run by the agency. Agency staff are for the first time trained to audit dental clinics, vet clinics and other premises using X-ray under the Ionizing Radiation Regulation 2004. Up to now, these were not monitored and so presented a risk to the public. Inspection for the first time of hotels, guest houses and holiday lets for general hygiene and cleanliness, health and safety, swimming pool quality, etc. The encouragement of small business initiatives by the issuing of hawkers and peddlers licenses, which this government has reactivated. The expansion of anti-dog fouling campaigns to include talks at schools, poster competitions and CCTV cameras. Mr. Speaker, works on the improvement on the cemetery continue, and a tender for the landscaping and general maintenance of the North Front Cemetery has been published and is in progress. Furthermore, the Cemeteries Board now meets on a monthly basis, and I will be meeting with them in the very near future to discuss improvements to the role, advice, areas of concerns, and general management of all the Gibraltar cemeteries. Urban renewal is one of the responsibilities that falls within my portfolio, Mr. Speaker, and it is proceeding apace. In this, it is often the work of other ministries and departments, notably housing, technical services and education, that through their own activities form the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that come together to reveal the final picture. And so the works in the estates like Laguna, Glacis, Moorish Castle, Red Sands, and the new Upper Town schools form part of this unprecedented boost to renewing our fair city. And so do other works that you will have seen around the town, including, for example, Joshua Hassan House and Duke of Kent House. The Upper Town Street Projects tender has been awarded and will see work commencing soon. These have all generated great interest from the private sector, and more upper town properties are being refurbished with plans that include a small hotel. Movement in this sphere is absolutely unprecedented in Gibraltar. In addition, I have formed a committee which involves the Gibraltar Heritage Trust with the aim of identifying sites within our urban areas that require work and investment with a view to encouraging refurbishment before demolition becomes inevitable through dereliction. Mr. Speaker, between February 2013 and April 2014, we planted 212 trees and worked extensively on the maintenance and improvement of green areas. What better showcase, Mr. Speaker, of the value of green areas than the benefit they bring, both environmentally and socially, to the community, can we have than the recently inaugurated Commonwealth Park? The park, yet another success story, is being enjoyed by the community as a whole, both young and old, and it has probably been the most drastic and beneficial change to its urban fabric that Gibraltar has ever seen. Commonwealth Park, Mr. Speaker, has added a new dimension to Gibraltar, a dimension that those without vision seem not to even have realized existed. Mr. Speaker, the hounding by the opposition during the construction of the park was epic. When will it be ready? Will it be ready? Why did the trees come from there? How many lorries did you use? How much will it cost? Cynicism at its worst, which reminds me, Mr. Speaker, of Oscar Wilde's definition of a cynic as being a man who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. Mr. Speaker, Commonwealth Park was an example of collaboration with other entities, in this case, the public spiritedness of the Kusuma Trust, of effective utilization of European Union funds, of the use of local resources with the soil being manufactured in Gibraltar, recycling, and of the use of environmentally friendly technology. The benefits to health and well-being will be felt by the community in a way that simple statistics will not reveal for many years, but which everyone already realizes. Already, we have announced a new, albeit smaller, and town square type park in Governor's Parade, an extension to landscaping soon to be completed in the area. Gibraltar needs to be green in colour as well as in philosophy. And, Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that work on setting up 2 dog parks in Gibraltar, one in the north and one in the southern districts, is about to commence. I will now move on to the subject of the Gibraltar Nature Reserve. Mr. Speaker, the Department is working tirelessly with the Gibraltar Tourist Board, the Department of Education and others on a whole array of projects which will improve the Upper Rock for tourists, the tour and transport operators who make a living from the area, and residents alike. In doing so, we are conscious of the millions of pounds that the Upper Rock has through the years contributed to the Gibraltar economy, the fact that it is a major tourist destination, and the fact that many residents are now choosing to stay in Gibraltar rather than crossing into Spain and are looking for more things to do here. Already this spring, we reopened the Princess Caroline's Battery area to the community after many years, and we provided picnic tables and seating. That is nothing at all compared to what we have planned. It will be nothing short of a complete transformation and revitalization of this too long forgotten national gem and tourist product. Visitors to the Upper Rock will feel almost as if they were walking in the sky. We are reopening and improving existing trail, improving wayfinding and delivering thematic routes, enhancing recreation areas and facilities, improving safety and accessibility, thereby catering for different interests. We're restoring and preserving historic structures, delivering improved interpretation and reopening areas to the general public. We are protecting the flora and fauna, improving the habitat for macaques, reintroducing or enhancing the populations of key species, ensuring better definition of public paths, and educating visitors and residents on our natural heritage. We are delivering interpretation centres which will benefit not only local education, but the ecotourism experience as well, better signage, enhanced maps and guides, and of course, interactive apps on the Upper Rock. And the Upper Rock Management Plan will ensure continuous maintenance, preventing vandalism and litter, and promoting continuous improvement. Moving on to the area of habitat management, Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to report that great strides continue to be taken in the fields of terrestrial and marine habitat management. The department is working closely with local interest groups, pulling on local expertise and experience in such projects as the Gibbats project, fish tagging, removal of invasive species, preservation of existing species through the provision of swift boxes and bat boxes, seagrass restoration, species relocations, reef surveillance and enhancement, the development of an exciting reintroduction program which will commence with the Barbary partridge and will see other species of fauna and flora in coming months. The existing surveillance monitoring program will continue to be enhanced this year to ensure greater data capture for species of flora and fauna of local and European interest. Interpretation signs showcasing particular species of flora and fauna have gone up around Gibraltar and more will follow. These have included the cemetery, the Upper Rock, Europa Foreshore and Windmill Hill, amongst others. They will serve to educate the public on important species found in Gibraltar. Mr. Speaker, we have been working very hard indeed to reverse the historical effects of lack of proper management of the Barbary macaques of Gibraltar, which has resulted in our monkeys becoming regarded more as a nuisance than as an asset. Part of the management strategy is to help the public regain the traditional affection for these unique mammals with which we share the rock, and once again to be proud of their presence and their legendary significance to the status and even sovereignty of our country. The recently launched video clip explaining some aspects of their behavior and how we can help is one example of how we intend to do this. The department the Tourist Board is bringing in local expertise in developing a full-blown education campaign, something which I greatly welcome. The creation of additional foraging areas on the Upper Rock by clearing dense scrub continues to great effect. Work continues too on the Upper Rock on building new ponds and enlarged feeding sites. These works are all aimed at providing as much potential activity as possible on the Upper Rock, where up till now dense scrub greatly reduced the areas they could use. The busier they are on the rock, the less likely that they will move down into urban areas. The groundbreaking research carried out last year, together with the University of Notre Dame, has shown how the macaques move widely, with successive sightings of macaques in different areas, in fact being of the same individuals who are moving around. This was most useful in confirming, for example, that the group that was frequenting Laguna was in fact made up of the same individuals that would visit Catalan Bay. This helped inform the decision that it is this group that will be the main component of the animals that will be exported. Preparations are progressing well on this initiative, both in Gibraltar and at the receiving location, and details will be released in the coming months. The enclosure of refuse facilities in macaque hotspots areas continues. Deployment of additional keen and resourceful personnel to patrol built-up areas has also helped in improving the situation, as has the deterrent of the introduction of fixed penalty fines. There is much still to do, as nature takes its time in responding, but I am confident of huge improvements in the situation this coming year. Mr. Speaker, the politically mischievous or politically ignorant, or simply those who mean us harm, tried very hard to blame the current Spanish government's abuse of power at the frontier on the legitimate creation of an artificial reef in our territorial waters. The huffing and puffing over, Mr. Speaker, the Northwest Artificial Reef, despite the tampering, is an example of habitat creation and encouragement of the improvement of marine life in our waters. Already there is evidence of its success, and plans to further enhance the area by the introduction of the seagrasses that once formed an underwater meadow there, but that were raked away, are advancing. Other environmental improvements include the new groins and breakwaters at Sandy Bay, already teeming with life. In this context, and following a wide range of discussion with stakeholders, regulations to govern marine activities in Gibraltar waters while enhancing our fish stocks by investing in sensible regulation will be published very soon. Mr. Speaker, much needed improvements to the enforcement of environmental laws are progressing well. There are currently 2 officers filling a new role, environmental enforcement officer. They have received the necessary training from the RGP and the Attorney General's chambers to allow them to fulfill their roles. The areas of competence now include the enforcement of the Nature Protection Act, the Public Health Act, the Litter Act, Animals and Birds Act, and the Seashore Rules, and include the ability to issue litter tickets and fixed penalty tickets for feeding macaques. The section coordinates a program of CCTV cameras in hotspot areas of fly tipping and dog fouling. In the area of environmental noise, we have met with and will continue to meet our EU obligations under this legislative regime, and in January 2014, Gibraltar submitted its updated Noise Action Management Plan after a period of public consultation. The Department of the Environment and Environmental Agency are now reviewing the plan through the reconvened Noise Core Steering Group, a group that had ceased to function under the previous administration. The Gibraltar Air Quality Monitoring Programme continues and informs the government on local air quality and management. Gibraltar achieves compliance with virtually every pollutant measured under the requirements of the Air Quality Directive, and work continues to ensure compliance with all pollutants in the coming years. Gibraltar will this year be investing in new equipment for monitoring stations to ensure that the quality of data collection is maintained. Weather stations have now been set up around Gibraltar. These will provide the government with detailed meteorological data to support its air quality program and to assist with plans to develop climate change mitigation and adaptation programs. Government has also commissioned a road traffic air modelling study to support the Sustainable Traffic Transport and Parking Plan. Mr. Speaker, the transition from a Gibraltar, where it was a struggle to convince the government of the importance of the environment, to one where government leads, is hugely evident and hugely significant. And it can only be good for the community and for Gibraltar's international standing. And it is attracting attention both within Europe and, as is increasingly evident, in the USA. The best thing about this, Mr. Speaker, is that the new way of doing things is finding its way into all levels of our society: schools, workplaces, businesses, large and small, and the public service. Mr. Speaker, this is lasting change of which we are proud. And proud I am of my hugely committed staff in the department under our new and dynamic CEO, Dr. Liesl Mesilio Torres, and in the ministry, of our contractors in the agency and other entities, including government departments and authorities, for responding so well to the call of the environment. I honestly, deeply, and truly am appreciative of all that you do, and I greatly enjoy working with you. Mr. Speaker, I did say that I was dividing this speech into two. I just hesitated, considering the imminent, I assume, arrival of Mr. Lidington, but I am told that I can continue. With your permission, I'll have another sip of water. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention to the Ministry of Health and the Gibraltar Health Authority. Mr. Speaker, some people were sceptical about our resolve to improve current services, implement new ones, and increase access to treatments. Skeptical about our ability to make changes at the top and which would be reflected in improvements at all levels. Mr. Speaker, all can see that, although there is a great deal still to be done, we have made very significant progress, and I assure this House that we continue to be determined to complete this process. Fugit in repalabilis tempus, to use the quote from the Georgics again, Mr. Speaker. But just like a newly transplanted tree invests in its first years in developing its roots, fooling the observer on the surface by the limited growth of its branches and leaves, only to burst into a frenzy of new life once the roots are firmly established, so too be aware, Mr. Speaker, that the groundwork done, the teams and processes in place, we are just about ready to go. Mr. Speaker, after 2.5 years in office, I continue to have an open approach to improving the health service. I continue to meet staff, service users, pressure groups, charities, and other organizations, which enables me to be aware of any shortfalls or gaps in the service, be it resources, logistics, space, access to services like GP appointments, or waiting times like at the Accident and Emergency Department. Mr. Speaker, I encourage those with concerns about our services to come forward and make them known. Knowing about them enables me and the GHA to address them and deliver a health service to be proud of and one that meets the needs of our people. Since my last presentation to this House, a solid foundation continues to be laid for the achievement of our goals and the manifesto commitments that we have set ourselves. Mr. Speaker, in previous presentations to the House, I've made numerous references to the need to change the GHA's management structure, which are described as awkward and complex, with little focus on the patient or service user. Over the last 12 months, we have taken huge strides in this with the appointment of hugely experienced Gibraltarian health professional, Freddy Pito, as the new CEO, as well as a new medical director, but also the appointment of 3 unit general managers. The new unit managers will provide much-needed leadership and unity to the 3 pillars of our health service: primary care, secondary care, and mental health. The main benefits of this new management structure will be more effective and efficient management of operations, better integration of services, and a seamless journey for patients and service users. The introduction of the unit managers will further assist in strengthening budgetary discipline by creating more controls, greater responsibility and accountability for the GHA's expenditure. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take the opportunity here to thank John Langan and Ernest Lima for biding the organization over for a year and for the support they are always willing to provide the GHA. Mr. Speaker, parallel to the restructure will be the review and formation of new groups. The GHA senior management team is being formed to replace the old, tired, and ineffective GHA executive and will be tasked to deliver on our strategic objectives. The GHA operational group will form the senior management group with regards to operational delivery, the management of performance, and management of risk. Together as a team, they will have collective responsibility to ensure the most effective running of the organization ever, in order to optimize the experience of patients in our care. Additional groups will include the corporate and clinical governance group and will address such issues as patient safety, staff training and development, audit, learning from clinical incidents and accountability, just to mention a few areas. Early indication from feedback collected by the new team from our users is that they feel our health service needs to focus on the following key points: a shifting emphasis from cure to prevention to include screening programs, a health service planned around the health needs of the population, a health service which aims for consistency, safety, and high quality, care which is provided by the appropriate professional in the appropriate site, reconfiguration of our services, and model of service delivery with a greater shift to daycare, outpatients, and community services, a wider integrated approach to healthcare, with the GHA operating with other government departments and agencies with the aim of improving the health of our community, a health service which invests in staff training and development, an organization which learns and responds to the main themes of audits, complaints, and incidents, a wider use of IT to improve patient care, and repatriation of services. And finally, a health service which is financially cost-effective and operates within budget. These are in tune with our manifesto commitments and will form the basis of the GHA strategy for the coming years. Mr. Speaker, all of these key points, which will form the framework of our vision, one of which will have a health, one of which will be to have a healthcare model which improves accessibility to services, focuses on quality of care, and always with strict, responsible financial controls in place to ensure cost-effective service. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to turn my attention to specific areas of our health service, what has been achieved, and what is in the process of being introduced. Mr. Speaker, Gibraltar's childhood immunization schedule is one of the most progressive in the world, and the programs continue to be carried out every year in accordance with the schedule by the primary care practice nurses. Protection against disease is also available to our adult population through comprehensive and established programs such as the influenza vaccine. New developments in this area may soon include the introduction of the vaccination program against shingles. This has recently been introduced in the UK, and the GHA is considering this program since we shadow the UK's immunization programs. Mr. Speaker, the lack of occupational health services has been a major handicap for many years. This has resulted in situations where healthcare workers were not protected against serious infections like hepatitis B, to which they are at risk of exposure whilst working. Gibraltar and European law is quite clear and specific on the employer's responsibilities towards workplace safety and on health protection for employees, laying particular emphasis on the role of vaccination. The risk of hepatitis B does not only affect GHA workers, but also police officers, prison officers, social workers, sewage workers, and a variety of others who are exposed in varying degree to this risk due to their occupations. In order to address this immediate risk, the government has set up a scheme in partnership with the GHA to immunize all Gibraltar government employees who are at a significant occupational risk of hepatitis B. The program was launched in March this year and was a hugely significant and well overdue service. Mr. Speaker, Gibraltar already has a screening program in place against breast cancer, and we have this year, on the advice of our consultants and our referral centre, streamlined and improved the service. Attention has now turned to the prevention of another major cancer, colorectal cancer. This is Gibraltar's most commonly occurring cancer, as well as the third most frequent cause of cancer deaths. The incidence is also rising compared to a decade ago. It has a high mortality if left undetected. Mr. Speaker, the government announced a screening program targeted at all persons between the ages of 60 and 74 years. The government has invested substantially in the resources and improved facilities necessary to make this a reality and make the Gibraltar program a state-of-the-art design superior to that of many countries. The program was launched in February 2014. Mr. Speaker, lives will be saved as a result. Mr. Speaker, I am committed to the continued introduction of screening programs for early detection of disease, which improves survival rates and the quality of life of our people. This is one of our manifesto commitments. The next screening program, which will be introduced, is screening for abdominal aortic aneurysms. Having an aneurysm does not produce symptoms unless it starts to bleed. Early diagnosis and treatment will once again save lives. Mr. Speaker, priority continues to be given to the area of health promotion and public health education. We will continue to considerably amplify the productivity of the department in meeting the standards that the public expects. Activities carried out by the department during this past year include the following awareness campaigns: breastfeeding, immunization, reducing obesity, colorectal cancer screening, sun awareness, and dermatology. Mr. Speaker, we continue to address gaps in this department which were ignored by the previous administration. The Public Health Department has now taken steps to halt the progressive deterioration of the quality of data of the Cancer Registry, whose fitness for purpose had been questioned in an audit report in 2009. The department will now carry out its core data and information-based functions. Mr. Speaker, in my last address to this House at budget time, I mentioned the publication of Gibraltar's first ever health and lifestyle survey. In the words of our Director of Public Health, Dr. Vijay Kumar, every nation that desires to understand the health of its population must at some point consider carrying out a health and lifestyle survey. The information and data gathered will allow for informed decision making and appropriate actions to be taken to improve the health and lifestyle of all of Gibraltar's people. This survey has brought insights into the health of the people in an unprecedented manner. However, the wealth of information gained will only remain useful if it is regularly supplemented and updated. To this end, the Public Health Department is planning for the next Health and Lifestyle Survey to take place in 2014-15. Creation and successful completion of such projects highlights the commitment by this government and the GHA to ever closer understanding of the health of our people. Mr. Speaker, I am also pleased to announce the introduction of a totally new consultant microbiology service. Medical science has changed vastly in the realm of infectious diseases in the past decade, and many bacteria seen in hospital infections nowadays are resistant to antibiotics, creating an impending crisis for the future. Addressing this problem requires specialist clinical expertise in infectious disease management, which the GHA currently does not have. It is, however, planned that a service provider contract with a UK-based Gibraltarian consultant clinical microbiologist will fill this gap. The benefits of this will be more optimized treatment for patients and better management of the scarce antibiotics. Other initiatives that we are planning include an initiative on men's health awareness and the enhancement of prostate cancer detection in collaboration with the Prostate Cancer Support Group and the Kusuma Trust. Mr. Speaker, the GHA's HR and finance staff were very, very busy in the latter months of 2013, coordinating and undertaking the administrative arrangements necessary to facilitate the transfer to the GHA of approximately 260 care agency staff. The most significant change to the transferred staff was that of a pay uplift, bringing their salaries in line with that received by GHA staff under the Agenda for Change Gibraltar Agreement, which had been a commitment of the parties in government. This required many hours of hard work, and I am grateful to the staff, both of the GHA and the care agency, for making this possible in record time. 20 members of staff from a wide cross-section of the organization successfully completed the Learning in Action Management Development Program. A key element of the program involved the completion of a work-related project which would subsequently be of value to the organization. Mr. Speaker, the government continues with its commitment to deliver a wide range of levels of education, including university-level education locally, be it at undergraduate or postgraduate level. I say this in relation, of course, to the School of Health Studies. Last year, I was pleased to announce the commencement of the first ever BSc Nursing Adult Degree Program, with 15 students being selected. We are now in the process of selecting the next group of students who will be starting in September this year. Additional to this, we have recently introduced a postgraduate master's program in leadership and management in health. This will provide a high level of education for our leaders and managers. This government and the GHA will continue in its aspiration to respond to the needs of the people of Gibraltar through the provision of high quality, fit for purpose and contemporary healthcare education. Mr. Speaker, most importantly, the provision of education by the GHA is aimed at staff across the organization with a strong commitment to opening up professional career paths for all staff. We have already started enrolled nurse level training for nursing staff, and the second cohort is soon to start. This has opened avenues for entrance at nursing assistant level to be able, through hard work and commitment, to continue to progress their nursing career. Mr. Speaker, other future training programs for our staff will include the possibility of undertaking foundation degree programs which will continue to develop and modernize the service provided by the GHA. For the first time ever in the history of Gibraltar, we graduated 4 students with a foundation degree in paramedic science from Kingston University. All 4 are now registered with the Healthcare Professionals Council. The final cohort of 12 diploma nursing students graduated in November 2013 at a colourful graduation ceremony at the John Mackintosh Hall. I am pleased to inform this House that all those nurses who qualified secured employment within the GHA. Additionally, 2 students returned from Kingston and St George's University of London with mental health nursing qualifications, and one of them secured a first-class honours degree. I take this opportunity to congratulate all the successful students of the GHA School of Health Studies. I am pleased and proud to say that the school is also playing a key role in the ongoing work led by my colleague, the Minister for Education, towards setting up a University of Gibraltar. In partnership with the Department of Education, we are monitoring the number of local students undertaking healthcare-related programs in UK in order to plan for the future workforce of the GHA. But, Mr. Speaker, the provision of education does not end here. For healthcare professionals to maintain and improve their skills and knowledge for the benefit of patient care, we have set up a comprehensive program of continuing professional development. This is multidisciplinary, offering modules of study for a variety of academic levels reflecting the health and care needs of the people of Gibraltar. The majority of these modules are generic in nature, as we continue to encourage staff to accumulate academic credit as they work towards a diploma or degree in healthcare practice. All of this, Mr. Speaker, has been achieved as a result of the professionalism and commitment of the staff at the School of Health Studies and with our partners at Kingston University and St George's University. Mr. Speaker, the development and modernization of the Gibraltar Ambulance Service continues to be a priority for this government. We recently appointed a new Chief Ambulance Officer who started in his new role on the 1st of March 2014. Mr. Speaker, as with all other sectors of the GHA, training for the ambulance service continues to be a priority. As previously mentioned, 4 members of the ambulance service completed their paramedic training. We are in the process of making the required changes to our legislation, and once this has been completed, the newly qualified paramedics will have at their disposal the whole range of clinical interventions and drug administration regimes which are available to their UK counterparts. Paramedic care at this level has been shown to not only save lives in seriously ill and injured patients, but also to improve the general outcomes for a whole range of other patients in the pre-hospital arena. Plus, they will be able to use their newly acquired knowledge and skills to support their emergency medical technician colleagues. Mr. Speaker, other training programs have included 16 GHA ambulance staff undertaking training in marine emergencies, and the ambulance service now, for the first time ever, has the capability of responding to maritime emergencies in our coastal waters. 13 staff were trained in chemical, biological, radioactive and nuclear equipment and readiness to UK standards. Mr. Speaker, the GHA's vehicle procurement plan is well underway and has already replaced the bulk of the ambulance fleet. In total, 5 new vehicles have arrived, which have included patient transport ambulances and high-dependency unit ambulances. Mr. Speaker, prior to this plan, the fleet had been in a poor and dangerous condition and largely not fit for purpose, placing patients and staff at risk. I am committed to never again allowing the fleet to age to the point where almost total replacement was urgently required within a short time frame. Mr. Speaker, the pharmacy department now has a community pharmacist who replaced many of the functions of Mr. William Mito Guillem, who retired earlier this year, and who I would like to thank for his many years of service in setting up and running the prescription pricing and advisory unit. The pharmacy department continually strives to improve the service it provides. As new initiatives, it has introduced double checks for all dispensing, with drug labels carrying 2 signatures. Wards have greater input from pharmacists on a daily basis, and this year has seen the introduction of an emergency drugs cupboard for out of hours, which is proving very effective and allows patients to receive medication in a timely manner. Another initiative which is being explored is the introduction of patients' own drugs cabinets. Mr. Speaker, another major achievement has been the transposition of all handwritten prescriptions into the electronic prescribing record system. Huge piles of unrecorded prescriptions have been the norm in the past, a real danger to patients. Mr. Speaker, I can now confirm that for the first time ever since its inception approximately 8 years ago, all handwritten prescriptions generated and presented to the PPAU are now in the system. This translates to up-to-date patient medication records and therefore increases patient safety issues. Mr. Speaker, this is just one of the hidden issues that I have been discovering since coming into office. Fortunately, it has now been dealt with. Mr. Speaker, this year has seen significant improvements and updates to the pathology equipment base and laboratory information system. The majority of the biochemistry, hematology and coagulation analyzers have been replaced. This will ensure that all equipment is reliable, robust and current. Mr. Speaker, we are also in the process of introducing new tests. In 2003, a NICE guideline recommended that pregnant women should be offered screening for Down syndrome. At present, the GHA offers all mothers to be a blood test at 12 weeks to screen for Down syndrome, but this only gives a 67% detection rate. In 2007, the NICE guidelines recommended that all women should be offered screening tests with detection rates above 75%. Mr. Speaker, the non-invasive prenatal test, or NIPT, will soon become available to Gibraltar mothers. The advantage of this test, a blood sample taken at 8 weeks, is that it is 99.9% accurate for detection of Down syndrome and will save many families from the stress and anxiety of having a stressful test, amniocentesis, which is done by inserting a needle and taking a sample of fluid around the baby and carries a higher risk of miscarriage. Mr. Speaker, at present this test is only offered in the private sector, and Gibraltar will be the first ever national program of that type anywhere in the world, and it will be available as from the 14th of July to women of Gibraltar, who will have the latest and most advanced tests with the least disturbance and anxiety. Mr. Speaker, our aim to computerize patient notes remains as strong as ever. We are very aware of the benefits that this will bring to the service, including increased patient safety by reducing or correcting errors, improved shared decision-making, more accurate and efficient transferability of records, clinical and administrative time savings. Mr. Speaker, since 2007, the GHA identified electronic patient records, or EPR, as a way forward in modernizing and improving our health service. But the previous administration stood idle and took no notice or action on this, to the detriment of progress and of the service. This government has seen and witnessed the importance of this project and has committed itself fully to this initiative. I can inform this House that the GHA issued an OJ EU advert on the 27th of November 2013. The Electronic Health Record Programme Board, which I chair, has been set up to oversee this project and ensure it is delivered on time. Mr. Speaker, in the periphery of the work being undertaken with the EPR project, other initiatives and improvements are taking place. The Information Systems team have developed in-house clinical applications to manage various requirements for monitoring and managing patients or specific clinical initiatives. Other new initiatives are being worked on, including a new look to the existing system and a diabetic clinic system. These new systems will be integrated once the full EPR system is in place. Mr. Speaker, the Information Technology team continue to manage the GHA's computer and network infrastructure and are involved in various development programs, such as the design and build of the new data center, the installation of a histopathology system which will enable the computerization of all results in this area of pathology services, and to fully integrate with existing systems, also involved in the installation of a hospital Wi-Fi network, improvements to the virtual clustered server environment, new backup and disaster recovery systems for business continuity, and supporting other GHA projects such as the new mental health facility. Mr. Speaker, the GHA launched its new website and social media presence on the 17th of July 2013. The website was designed and developed completely in-house. Since its launch in July last year, the website has received 48,506 unique visits, 158,986 page views, and the average site visit lasted for approximately 5 minutes. The website has also received 409 email inquiries, and 164 service users cancelled their appointments online. Prior to the launch, the previous website had received a total of 384 unique visitors, 1,983 page views, and the average visit had lasted 3 seconds. They can't have been very impressed with what they saw. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our manifesto commitment of making alternative arrangements to improve the delivery of meals and consequently their quality, I can inform this House that the feasibility study commission for the relocation of the catering facility to St. Bernard's Hospital has been completed, and the project is now in the construction phase. The new facility has been designed to cater for a bulk meal service. However, discussions are already underway to phase in this service as a pilot prior to the completion and relocation of the facility. Works to accumulate the bulk meal service within the wards are proceeding. On medical records, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform this House that the exercise to relocate all active patient medical files to the new medical records library was successfully completed in December last year. This new facility will provide spacious and functional accommodation for the safe storage and retrieval of medical records and improve the working environment for staff. Mr. Speaker, the Sponsored Patients Department continues to see an increased trend in the number of patients being referred to various UK and Spanish centres for tertiary treatments, due to the fact that healthcare continues to become even more specialised and more options become available for patients. The government will continue to support this program, but is always mindful of exploring options for repatriation of both diagnostic and treatment services, and of keeping services as close to home as possible to ensure patient and family comfort and to offer a wider choice to our people. Following on these lines, we have formally established a service-level agreement with Zanet International Hospital, which has fixed prices and provides the opportunity for tertiary referrals close to home for a wide variety of medical conditions. Discussions with other centres are also in progress. Mr. Speaker, the number of referrals processed by the GHA's Sponsored Patients Department will continue to increase. In order to ensure that the department continues to provide an excellent service, an internal review of the department and its services is currently being conducted in keeping with the government's manifesto commitment to this effect. Changes to the conditions and allowances are being considered and will be concluded within this financial year. As an interim measure, Mr. Speaker, and as from the 1st of August this year, the maximum allowance payable to patients and escorts staying with friends and relatives will be increased by approximately £75 a week to equal half of the amount given for staying in rental accommodation. This will assist these patients and their relatives who often receive very meagre allowances. Mr. Speaker, the radiology department has been a pioneer within the GHA as regards information systems and electronic requesting. There have been ongoing developments within the field of teleradiology, and patient images and reports can now be sent abroad directly through secure login accounts to users anywhere, anytime. The tender for the procurement of the new CT scanner is going through due process via the government's Central Procurement Office, and I expect it will be in place during this financial year. Mr. Speaker, not surprisingly, I continue to support initiatives by GHA management and those by the GHA's very active environmental task group. The GHA continues to be proactive in reducing the environmental impact brought about the use of its facilities and services. There are various environmentally friendly initiatives aimed at reducing energy consumption, enhancing energy conservation, recovery, and the reduction of operational costs. Some of these initiatives include an LED lighting scheme with the aim of replacing conventional lighting throughout the GHA. A smart metering solution has recently been commissioned to ensure we are able to monitor power usage throughout St. Bernard's Hospital. The installation of heat recovery systems, which ensures the recovery of heat load generated from the air conditioning systems in order to provide hot water, already installed at the new mental health facility. A new solar thermal plant will be installed at St. Bernard's Hospital. It's expected this plant will provide up to 60% of the hospital's hot water with considerable savings in fuel costs. Other projects include the introduction of recycling bins for paper and cardboard and small electrical and electronic equipment. Mr. Speaker, improving mental health services remains one of our top priorities. A large proportion of the work done over the past year in mental health relates primarily to the new facility due to open this year. Through a process of discussions with a number of groups, including staff, service users, carers, support groups and relatives, major changes will be seen in the way mental health operates. Among some of the improvements will be the ability to offer more appropriate placements for patients during their journey through the reconfigured facility. Mr. Speaker, the new facility will also see the introduction of a variety of new services and programs, including a sheltered employment program in partnership with the Clubhouse Project, an activity and recreational centre offering structured programs, and the introduction of open-air exercise equipment in the garden to promote a healthy living initiative linked to the Well Man and Well Woman groups. All these programs are being developed to assist full integration into society and giving patients the opportunity for a better future. Mr. Speaker, another area which required great attention was the Community Mental Health Unit. This facility is currently undergoing a major refurbishment program to all existing areas, which will include an extension to the existing building, which will house 2 extra consultation rooms and a secure area to house all the clinical notes. Mr. Speaker, when I came into office, I made a promise of never again allowing the mental health service to deteriorate to the level that I found it. I maintain this commitment. And I am pleased to inform this House that we are well on the way to having a mental health facility and service of which Gibraltar can be proud. Mr. Speaker, Due to the increasing demand of services for dementia patients, resources have been reconfigured and staff has successfully completed further training in this field in order to offer more support to this client group and their families. Keeping to the subject of improving services and facilities for dementia patients and support for relatives and carers, the Dementia Day Facility Steering Group continues to work on this project with a target date for completion late this year. This group is also developing the dementia strategy for Gibraltar. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot more to go. We've been very busy this year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, perhaps the biggest success story of this past year has been the opening of the new day surgery unit with its extended opening hours and specialized staff. This unit has the ability to do more procedures as day surgery, reducing the need for overnight stay and the use of much-needed inpatient beds. Most healthcare providers worldwide are working hard to implement this model of surgery as the norm for the vast majority of surgical procedures, as there are multiple benefits for the patient and healthcare provider. In the UK, around 70% of all surgery is carried out in this way, and the NHS is trying hard to improve on this number. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to say that the GHA's day surgery program has revolutionized surgery at the GHA and now accounts for nearly 85% in April of all surgery, compared to just 33% in January 2013. I have to thank all the staff concerned who have spearheaded the project themselves and responded to this change admirably. Mr. Speaker, the aim of the GHA's day surgery program is not just about numbers, but about a service which follows international best practice, contributes towards a safer service, and aims at improving patient and staff satisfaction and outcomes. The success of this is evidenced by the numerous letters and positive patient feedback received, highlighting its excellence. The opening of the new day surgery unit, together with the introduction also this year of the third operating theatre suite, which had practically remained inactive since the opening of the new hospital, have been major factors in addressing some of the challenges which were being faced by the health service: long surgical waiting lists in every specialty and the unavailability of hospital beds. The number of cancelled operations due to bed shortages has dropped massively since last summer, with only 2 cancellations during the usual difficult winter season between October and March. This compares to a peak of 70 cancellations in 2011-2012, when the former management was in place and the policies of the previous administration lingered. The average cancellations in these months during the last winter were 0.4 per month, compared with averages of 9, 14 and 7 per month in the previous 3 winters. Mr. Speaker, the scourge of the GHA, cancellation of operations at short notice due to lack of beds, is a thing of the past and banished to the memory of the dark days of the GSD. Also significant is a drop in the number of patients waiting for surgery. Comparing April 2012 with March 2013 and March 2014, the total number of patients waiting was 986, 1,030 and 626 respectively. This is equivalent to a reduction by about a third in the past year. If those patients already booked for surgery are removed from the list, the total drops even further to 467, or half the figure. Mr. Speaker, even though there are still surgical specialties which continue to present a challenge, through a number of initiatives such as increasing the visits by visiting surgeons and undertaking weekend initiatives with the ability to use 3 theatres and day surgery, we will continue to improve on these figures. Progress in other waiting lists can also be seen. For example, in urodynamics, there has been a drop from 30 to 13 weeks. Even in orthopedics, which remains the biggest challenge due to a long-standing waiting list, the outpatient wait has dropped from an acceptable 10 months to 6 months. This is still not acceptable, and we are on on track to resolving this in the coming year, but it shows a clear improvement for over the past year. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to say that waiting lists are falling and waiting times reducing. Put another way, Mr. Speaker, we have slashed waiting lists and waiting times unrecognizably. Mr. Speaker, other factors which have contributed to achieving these successes have been a more proactive management of lists and beds, and more engagement by clinicians in the direction and development of theatre activity. This is hugely significant. The clinicians, nurses, doctors, and allied professionals are all actively involved in taking and actioning decisions, working with technical, administrative, and support staff, from attendants and labourers to craftsmen and domestics, who, as we know, keep the GHA in sparkling condition. And it works. The GHA is once again becoming a team. Mr. Speaker, I would be falling short of my duty if I did not here mention the work being done in partnership with the care agency in providing care packages and support in order to facilitate discharges of patients from St. Bernard's Hospital. This is in addition to the work that has been carried out by the care agency again in opening the John Mackintosh wing at the old St. Bernard's site. This facility, temporarily accommodating residents of the Jewish home, will cater for frail elderly patients and will allow the GHA to free up much-needed hospital beds, allowing it to continue its elective program and maintain its emergency capacity with no disruption or safety issues. Mr. Speaker, allied health professionals are an integral part of our healthcare system and have been involved in the past year in the introduction of new services and are working to implement even more. Mr. Speaker, keeping in line with improvements done to the GHA's waiting lists and waiting times, another success story is the physiotherapy outpatient waiting list, which reached an unacceptable 400 in October 2013 following loss of staff, with a waiting time of 20 weeks. Since January 2014, I am glad to say that this initiative has yielded very positive results, with a waiting time now standing at only 3 weeks. The physiotherapy department, together with other healthcare professionals, have worked towards the implementation of NICE guidelines for the management of non-specific lower back pain. The audiology department is working with the Nuffield Centre in the UK to set up a comprehensive neonatal screening program. The waiting list for hearing aids is in the process of being reduced. Waiting times for orthotics and optometry are just 2 weeks. During 2013, the optometry department introduced a contact lens service. Apart from a few patients who need to be referred to Moorfields Eye Hospital in the UK due to the need for more specialised treatment, the majority of patients are now seen locally, this being in line with the government's commitment to repatriate services. The occupational therapy staff continue to work tirelessly on the backlog of environmental works which stretched back to 2007. By prioritising these works for the first time in a year, this backlog has now been eliminated. The Early Birds training program started in March 2014. This program is jointly run by the pediatric occupational therapists and speech-language therapists, and is designed specifically for parents to help them with understanding and giving them practical coping strategies to implement at home and in school for their child with a recent diagnosis of autism. In line with our policy on autism, staff also attended the National Autism Conference held in the UK and gained excellent knowledge and skills from the workshops to ensure best practice is followed for this service. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly satisfied at the progress being made in providing support for families where autistic spectrum disorder has been diagnosed. I will continue to actively support this work, and I have encouraged parents of children with autism to form a support group with which I will continue to work. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I continue to meet regularly with too many groups to mention separately, and will continue to work together with them to achieve greater improvements. Some of the initiatives resulting from working with these groups have included and will include, Mr. Speaker, the introduction of free diabetic-specific medicines for all type 1 diabetics. Introduction for the first time of guaranteed annual reviews of type 1 diabetics by a consultant. Prostate cancer screening service. Improved lymphedema service. Plans to work on sexual health initiatives. Talking lifts in St. Bernard's Hospital to assist the visually impaired. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that after lengthy negotiations with Unite the Union, a firm proposal to resolve the issue of the consultant contract has now been put to Unite, the union who represents the consultants. These negotiations threw up new claims not anticipated when I reported to this House last year, which resulted in the discussions being extended. Mr. Speaker, we remain committed to also review the contracts of our non-consultant hospital doctors. Mr. Speaker, in line with our manifesto commitment of making the General Medical Council, the GMC, the regulatory body in Gibraltar for the medical profession, after meeting with the Department of Health and the GMC in London, we have made huge progress on this and expect soon to be in the position to implement. We have already identified the responsible officer for Gibraltar, and we are in the process of drafting the necessary legislation. Further progress has been a service-level agreement with Health Education England to deliver the mandatory appraisal programme for all our medical staff, which is a crucial part of the revalidation process. This will represent a massive step forward for the GHA in maintaining the skills, competency and quality of our medical staff, and one which will have a lasting and positive impact on the standard of healthcare in Gibraltar. The GHA has supported its doctors in dealing with this change in practice, which has included the GMC's own moves towards a stricter licensing regime. There has been and will continue to be full consultation with doctors in both the public and private sectors as the process is rolled out in the coming year. Mr. Speaker, an associate specialist in accident and emergency will shortly be appointed, which will improve the management and leadership of the medical team in this department, improve medical cover, and hopefully reduce waiting time for patients. Together with a plan to have a 24-hour receptionist presence at A&E, improvements in this area are envisaged. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of my presentation this afternoon, I identified that one of the problems that we continue to have is access to GP appointments. The system for the provision of advance appointments changed in August 2013. The appointment system changed from a 3-month cycle to a monthly cycle. This seems a better solution than the previous system, but I acknowledge that no system is perfect, and this one is not without its problems. Notwithstanding the improvements that the new system represents, it is clear that more work is still required. Analysis of available data on patient numbers reveals an increase in the number of users eligible for the service. This increase in demand is a challenge that is being discussed with both service users and service providers. I acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, that there are complaints with regards to the lack of access to services by telephone, especially at peak times of the morning. I take these concerns very seriously, and attempts continue to be made to improve access to services. The problem, Mr. Speaker, is largely due to the large number of persons who phone in over a short period. Even though there are lines in use and 60 callers get a recorded message, the system as it stands gives the impression that from the 61st caller that the phones are either off the hook or not attended. I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that this is not so, and I pay tribute to the staff at the Primary Care Centre for their commitment and hard work in challenging circumstances. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work on these issues. Ongoing developments to help improve the service include extra phone lines, booking appointments through the internet, further improvements to the repeat prescription system, texted appointments now introduced for those with sensory impairments, analysing further the GP workload, exploring different models which may change the way appointments are offered, with the aim of providing the quality of the GP-patient interaction and increasing the availability of GP appointments. Other developments which will improve the current services include extra clinics are currently being constructed, which will ease the pressure of clinic space felt by all clinicians. Specific children's clinics will very shortly be introduced, and nurse practitioners who are now able to prescribe from the full formulary. Mr. Speaker, all of these developments will result in the problems experienced by the public in accessing primary care becoming a thing of the past. Mr. Speaker, the GHA's hard facilities management services are provided through the Estates and Clinical Engineering section, which is staffed by staff seconded from the Gibraltar Electricity Authority. This covers the GHA's substantial estate across multiple sites. The team is responsible for planning and coordinating major works, many of which I have already mentioned. Engineering and maintenance support is provided for the estate's engineering infrastructure, as well as the maintenance, repair and calibration of medical plants, clinical equipment and medical gases. Mr. Speaker, the estates and clinical engineering team attended a total of 1,892 breakdown and repair requisitions and 459 after-hour call-outs. This represents a fall of 7% over the previous year. The hard work and commitment sees the GHA's premises function with a high degree of excellence and has reduced the backlog of servicing and commissioning to zero. Last year, the government maintained the GHA's substantially increased capital expenditure funding. This has allowed the GHA to develop important projects necessary to improve facilities and continues to make progress with its medical equipment life cycle replacement program, which ensures that our clinicians are supported with modern technology that is now an integral part of healthcare delivery. This investment in capital for the health service will continue this year. Mr. Speaker, I will now wrap up by mentioning a few ongoing initiatives which have seen recent progress or which we will see during the coming year. Mr. Speaker, building an extension into the surrounding grounds will expand the area available for patients in cardiac rehabilitation, physiotherapy and occupational therapy. For the first time in over 20 years, a medical advisory committee has been set up, made up of the doctors and dentists in the GHA. This is a manifesto commitment and essential in enhancing clinical involvement. The pathway for stroke care is at present being developed by a steering group of healthcare professionals under the direction of a specialist stroke consultant from the UK. This pathway will introduce the use of new technology which will transform the way healthcare is provided in Gibraltar. Telemedicine, which we are developing, will enable the A&D team to receive prompt advice from a skilled stroke consultant in the UK when a patient presents with a stroke to the A&E department. It will give medical and nursing staff in A&E support and advice on how to manage individual care. This will be by confirming diagnosis or making a differential diagnosis based on an expert assessment using a remote video-based consultation, a service which will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, thus improving the outcome for the patients. The use of this technology will start with stroke care, but will then continue to cover other specialties such as neurology, general medicine, general surgery, orthopedics, and others. Mr. Speaker, there have been an additional 5 defibrillators placed in public areas around Gibraltar, with a further one due to be installed when some refurbishment works are completed. The first ones ever, 10 in total, were placed by the government last year. Mr. Speaker, 10 new Gibraltarians have been born as a result of this government's introduction of IVF, and there are further pregnancies at the moment. Mr. Speaker, online access to British Sign Language interpretation for assisting the access to healthcare by the profoundly deaf will allow such service users a dignified and informed access to this healthcare. For the first time since moving to St. Bernard's new site, comprehensive fire planning and fire training has been provided to key workers in the GHA sites. The GHA is working with staff from the Office of the Ombudsman to redraft how complaints will be managed in the future, with the aim of addressing complaints more efficiently and to have more transparency and independence in the process. The final draft of the new complaints process with the accompanying changes to the legislation are expected to be completed by the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, in keeping in line with being up to date on EU directives, the Ministry set up a steering group to review the EU directive on cross-border healthcare and facilitate its implementation. Member States were given until October last year to implement their directive, and the Commission would be monitoring the process to ensure that this is fully implemented across the EU. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to announce that after introducing new legislation, the Cross-Border Healthcare Regulation 2013, setting up a national contact point and the GHA Prior Authorization Committee, all transposition was completed on time by the 25th of October 2013. Mr. Speaker, the International Health Regulations, or IHR, these regulations, which govern the processing of medical issues at our entry points, are due to come into force very shortly. The last administration had not given this priority, which would have left Gibraltar exposed at having inferior facilities at its entry points, especially its port, with the consequent effects on our reputation and success as a destination. I am pleased to say that once more, this administration has worked with tremendous interdepartmental collaboration and efficiency, and the regulations will be published within weeks. This has not just meant the publishing of the regulations, but ensuring that the processes are agreed and in place. Mr. Speaker, I would like to finish by sharing some examples of success and positive feedback, which is a reflection of the excellent work being carried out throughout the GHA. Speaker, from humble beginnings, dermatology in Gibraltar has grown over the years into a great service, to the full credit of the dermatology team. Evidence of this excellent service is the fact that one of the nurses leading this service, Ms. Linda Castro, was placed in second place in the category of Dermatology Nurse of the Year in the UK. This is testimony to the professionalism and excellence of Linda in particular, but also to the other employees and the service in general. The unit is shortly to have improved facilities at the reconfigured primary care centre, and recently held an extremely successful Skin Cancer Awareness Day and walk-in service with the collaboration of Unite, which received hundreds of visitors. This is a good point, Mr. Speaker, to mention the importance the government gives to protecting the health of the community. To this end, future government-organised or sponsored events will have available free sunscreen and ear protection. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to quote just a few of the feedback that has recently been received from a CCU patient. Having been admitted to CCU, suffering from a pulmonary embolism, the quality of the doctors and nursing staff was off the chart. These guys are on the go for the whole shift, yet the bedside manners and care was tremendous. And just one other, it is most often the case that people will only write to you to complain about the service received from the organization or take issue with a particular instance, action or aspect of the service. On this occasion, however, my wife and I would like to congratulate you on the thoroughly professional yet deeply caring manner which we were dealt with during our time at the maternity unit. There are many more. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I must thank all the nearly 1,000 staff of the Ministry and the Authority for their commitment, hard work, professionalism, and the support they give me in performing my duties. All our healthcare workers and support staff will forever remain our heroes. I wish to thank them all for their sterling work and performance, at times undertaken in very difficult and challenging circumstances. I also want to ask the members of the various committees and boards in relation to both my ministries for their work and sense of public duty, and extend these thanks to associations and others in the voluntary sector who play a tremendous role in improving and sustaining the health of our community. Mr. Speaker, I am conscious of the responsibility that I and my team carry on our shoulders as we are entrusted with a budget of about £100 million. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that never before will such money have been better spent, for we will see real improvements in the service that we provide. Mr. Speaker, there have been huge improvements in the health service provided in Gibraltar. I'd say unprecedented in any similar period. But I am not satisfied. It is not enough. I have already said that my main areas of concern are access to primary care and A&E. There are a few other areas where improvements have lagged. Some of these include some of the services provided by visiting consultants. I am pleased to report that I am undertaking an incisive review of these services in discussion with major UK providers, which will show marked improvements in the coming months. I am also committed to exploring new alternative pathways and avenues of treatment as a way of increasing the range of services available to our community. Mr. Speaker, among the difficulties we face is the need for space, both in the primary care centre and at St. Bernard's, particularly as we consider the possibility of repatriating diagnostic services such as MRI scans to Gibraltar. I am therefore hugely pleased and proud to announce that the government will shortly embark on the construction of a new wing at St. Bernard's Hospital, which will allow the GHA to relocate many of those services which are short of space and facilitate the repatriation of services. This will be a separate building located in the central courtyard and is already being designed. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to develop this service. Our ambition is for Gibraltar to have a health service second to none, a service in which we can all take pride, services which will reach beyond our hospitals and provide care where it is needed most, at home and in our community. A commitment to learn and improve and a focus on partnership will allow the GHA to succeed. This commitment is what defines this government and this Gibraltar Health Authority. Mr. Speaker, the coming year will be a memorable one for our health service. Mr. Speaker, this government of the GSLP and Liberals came into office with a promise of change. Mr. Speaker, as I have clearly demonstrated with reference to both my portfolios, it is not change that has been delivered. Mr. Speaker, it has been a veritable transformation. Thank you.